What's going on, guys and girls? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. As always, it's your host Armando. Great episode for you today. I just finished recording with Craig Dye from Dye Fishing. If you don't know Craig Dye, I mean, what can I tell you? The guy is an accomplished tournament angler, and he's doing a bunch of great things with his social media and his YouTube account. One of my favorite things about it is that it's entertaining, but at the same time educational. So if you love watching people hook into big fish, kind of like what Christine Fisher does on her recap tournament, and you also like to learn how to be a better angler, kind of what Gene Jensen does, then Craig Dye is one of those things where he tethers both sides of that fence with great entertainment and great learning context. So pretty excited to have him on my show, and we'll be talking about how he got into kayak fishing, doing tournaments, and doing the whole social media. As far as my week goes for kayak fishing, I've been pre-fishing for the Lake Granbury. Went out 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Last time I went, I had to cut it short because of thunderstorms. Still haven't managed to find a consistent pattern. Had a few bass here and there and some meaningful bass, biggest one being a 19 and a half, but really haven't found a solid pattern. But hopefully I'll figure something out by the time the tournament comes out, which is going to be on this weekend. So if you're listening to this, I already took part in that tournament, and hopefully I didn't get skunked. But basically, that's been my week so far in fishing. So yeah, that's it. Check out my sponsor, Douglas Rods. Go to douglasoutdoors.com to check out their full lineup, LRS, X Matrix, and the fly fishing rods. And Craig Dye is coming up, so we're going to commercial, so I'll be right back. Mr. Craig Dye, how are you, sir?
Hey man, doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. It's my honor to have you on our show. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of what you do on your social media platform, especially your YouTube channel. I like it mainly because it really, goes into that, tethers that line between being informative and also being entertaining. So it's really interesting. I'm a big fan of it.
Man, I appreciate it. Let me tell you something. I mean, I love fishing tournaments. I love catching big fish. I love being out there on the water as much as I can. But when you start filming stuff and start putting together videos and doing that, it creates a whole nother level, I don't know, of kind of excitement of what you're doing. Like, let's go out there, you say you catch a 5-pounder on a whopper plopper or a big spotted bass in the river or something, but then you get it on film, and then it's fun to catch it, but the whole drive home you're thinking about how you're going to edit that video, how you're going to put that together. You can't wait to see the shot. So doing the YouTube stuff, doing the video stuff, it's just, I don't know. I can't get enough of it, man. I wish I could put videos out every single week, and that's a lot of work. It's tough. I got to do it late at night after the kids go to bed, but it's worth it, man. It is.
It is something that I've the more I watch and I've learned both fishing and what it takes to do the whole social media. And I've worked with Charlie Wells, which is a marketing guru that's getting into the whole kayak fishing and bass fishing as far as helping anglers market themselves. And we did a photo shoot, and we talked about, and I've kind of like, I take my GoPros and I try to record, and I try to see if I could get contact to put a video. And the more I go down that rabbit hole, the more respect I have for what you and a lot of other anglers are doing. Christine Fisher comes to mind. It is one of those things to balance, because first of all, the editing is a lot of work. Plus, you have to catch fish, because you don't want to put a 10-minute video of you just casting a rod and B-roll footage on you on a drone. It's like it's hard, man.
That's funny. Yeah, when you have 6 minutes of B-roll in the front of the video, it's going to be. You don't know how much fish catching is going to be going.
I know, right? And
that's funny. Yeah.
It's interesting, and also, to me, I'm a very passive nature in the sense that I'm on the water. I don't think about the filming. Now, I do have a GoPro, and I kind of wish I had that, aspect of getting in the mindset of like, hey, I'm recording a video, I want to post it.
Yeah.
But I just get on my zone and I start fishing, and I catch the fish, take a picture, and I'm like, man, if I would have done this, I would have done that. Things I've learned from Charlie Wells, I'm like, I could have hiked it up a little bit. It would have been more interesting, more enjoyable, more, I don't know, aesthetically pleasing as far as YouTube video. I don't know what the term is, but I'm like, I just want to fish. I don't like it's a lot of respect. Definitely.
It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. And my brother-in-law, I told you earlier, I told you my brother-in-law Tyler's coming, and we're going to be on the Ocmulgee River, and we plan to film, but he's never caught a shoal bass, so I don't even. You get out there, man, you start catching fish, and the last thing you want to do is pull a camera out or mess with a drone or something. But so we're going to try to do it 2 days where get all the fishing, catching out of the way, and then Sunday we're going to try to focus on filming. You know, when we get to a few current breaks, put the drone in the air. Our goal, it's a lot of work, man. It's so hard to get the timing right. Our goal is to get the drone in the air and maybe find like a little eddy or a little break, and somebody throw in a whopper plopper or a spook and have a big 3, 4, 5 pound shoal bass come up and eat it, and you can see it from the drone from the top. That's the goal. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's probably
not a luck too.
A lot of luck. But the good thing about the river is a lot of the spots are predictable. You kind of know how the fish are going to set up. It's just it's got to be perfect. The lighting, the fish has got to eat it. You know, you got to catch the fish. The drone can't mess up. I mean, there's a lot of things happening, but it's worth it, man. I've had a lot of times where we go out there and we get a bunch of nothing, but you never know, man. Sometimes you hit it just right with the perfect lighting and the perfect angle. And it's just, you just have one of those days, man. It's just really cool. So I will say, for guys who don't like to mess with cameras when they're out there fishing tournaments or just fishing for fun, I have a couple ways where I set up my GoPros where I don't touch them. I just let them run all day. I got the external power. I got the the waterproof casing for the power. And I mean, a lot of guys know about it, but the guys that don't, that kind of takes all the worry out of it. You just fish. And then go home and go through 7 or 8 hours of footage, which you can do it pretty quick, and that's how I do it. So I don't have to mess with it on the water. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, actually, that's what I do too. I just had like a GoPro in the front, GoPro in the back. I actually put a little power bank battery. I don't mess with those. I don't want to say that in a negative way, but I don't want to deal with the weight and the expenses that go with like a heavy lithium battery, to power a bunch of things. So I just do have a little power bank. Those sell by Amazon. I think Anchor. I think that's an Amazon brand. And that'll last me the whole. Heck, one of them. I mean, it'll be 3 days out on the water before I need to recharge that thing. And one thing that I've learned watching, and that I learned from watching Christine Fisher's video, especially on summer, I take the battery out. And that helps it from overheating, because I used to have that problem, especially on summer. It would overheat so much. And then I found that trick. You take the battery that comes with the GoPro, take it out, and just run it on external power, and that really helps out.
Yeah, it just makes it nice to go out there and not worry about it. And you caught everything. Everything's on film, good and bad, which is good because you'll get a lot of good B-roll, just either running through some rapids or just a cool sunset or sunrise. A lot you can use that in your videos, to kind of cut clips in. So
it's funny because I had just posted before one of your videos came out, and I'll touch on that video in a second. But I posted a little what do you call it? Reels now on Instagram, because I guess that's a new thing. I'm still trying to get used to doing that, where you put a little music and a little B-roll of So I did one of me dragging my Hobie 360 through some really like 2-inch deep rapids, and I thought this is a good workout and all that. And then next day you post that video of you really hauling that new canoe over huge rocks. I'm like, oh, there it goes. Now I feel like a wimp compared to what Craig's doing. That was really intense.
That day was I was fishing the Chattahoochee River down there at West Point. Never fished it before. I called some people that kind of knew. We had a big stretch of the river to fish. That was a tournament. And I just, a guy said, well, this area can be good. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go. And it was one other guy at the ramp. And I'm like, man, I don't know if this is good or not. He said, that's pretty, he was a local. And he said, it's pretty good. And I love fishing. When I fish tournaments, man, I like fishing up river. I just like that angle you get. You hit those eddies perfect. You're not spooking any fish. Even if I've never been there, I have so much confidence in fishing that type of water it's a lot of work, as you can see. And I had a lot of areas that looked, I mean, they looked money, man. They looked like it was just going to be on, and they weren't, you know. And I actually went around this island twice, and those big drags you saw, I did that twice. Not just I did it like
really.
I did it, yeah. The filming you saw was clips of like me just doing it once, but I actually did that whole loop twice, and I was sore for a couple days after that. But
I bet.
But it to me, fishing that type of water and getting out there and dragging those kayaks and getting those spots where nobody else is going, that's what it's about, man. That's what I love about this sport. You know, that's what I love about kayaking and, you know, just fishing in general. You're trying to catch fish that people are just not messing with. And I like catching dumb fish. I don't know if you do, but I like catching.
I love it. It's funny. One of our guys in Paddle and Fin, Brad Hicks, loves river fishing. And there's not a lot of great rivers over here in Texas. Yeah. I mean, they are, but not necessarily where I live. The closest one that I really consider like a prime spot is Brazos River. And like you said, it can be very predictable, full of life and very exciting adventures. But like Brad Hicks was just saying on the podcast, he just sold his kayak. And one of the things is I'm just tired of, you know, hauling that kayak after a day of work and just going to the river and hauling that kayak upstream. And I get it. I've gone through that at the same time. There are times where I was like, do I really want to get up at 4 a.m, do a 2-hour drive? And then, because it's fun, but then it's like, man, I have to haul like must feel like a mile's worth of just dragging the kayaks through rocks and all that. Plus the damage costs you the haul. Yeah, it's worth it. Well, it's worth it.
Sometimes
it's worth it. I enjoy it. I mean, I've caught huge stripers, smallmouth. Last time I went, and I'll keep this short because it's not about me. Actually, it's about you. But the last time I went, I caught 2 huge stripers in 2 feet of water. My kayak was actually scraping on the bottom when I caught the stripers. I caught smallmouth bass. I caught a Guadalupe bass. I caught spotted bass, and I caught a largemouth bass. So it was like, yeah, this is the kind of day that I like, you know, where it's not just bass. I'm catching fish from all types, even a sand bass. I actually caught a sand bass too. So it's a wonderful day, man. It's bliss.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're fun fishing or what, even if you're tournament fishing, I mean, I caught a few striper on the Chattahoochee, and I had a blast, man. I was last guy in the money, so I won a little bit of money, and you know, it was a good 2-hour drive. I had to get up at 3:30 and get down there, but I had a great time. I mean, you know, it was a small club tournament, but I just love being out there and just, you know, I'm still super competitive. I'm still, you know, I didn't have to go around that island twice, but I figured if I wanted to get some upgrades, I'd have to do it. And it never gets old. I've been doing it for like 10 years, I think. 10 years I've been doing this. It's crazy.
10 years. What?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How do you keep yourself from burning out? And it sounds like a dumb question. It's like, how do you get burned out? But when you do the tournaments, and there's expensive involved in the tournaments, and at the end of the day, you know, the wife expects, I mean, I don't know about your situation, but I know my wife expects to see some return here. You know, at least let's break even. And also, you know, catching footage of it and editing. How do you keep it still to the point where it's enjoyable and not a burden, but still a pastime that you enjoy? How do you do it?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I guess I don't know what. Maybe I just. It's hard to answer it, man. I'll be honest with you. It's hard to answer because I've never had the feeling of being burnt out on it. Like I've never. I don't know. Maybe like I did a lot of tournaments when I lived in Tennessee, you know, and then I slowed down the last few years. I kind of fish kind of what I can get to. You know, I love fishing the Tennessee River, Pickwick, Gunnersville, you know, Chickamauga, all that, kind of whatever's close. But I'm still so competitive that I'm telling you, it's like the first time I do it. When I show up to the boat ramp in the morning, you're like, who's here? Where's everybody going? Where's, you know, am I going to be first to my spot? Who's over there? You know, it's hard to explain it. And maybe, you know, doing the filming and all that with it, you know, even if you have a bad tournament, but say you catch a 5-pounder on a crankbait, you know, in a current or something, it's a really cool shot. It's still exciting. You know, it's still fun. It still kind of keeps you like wanting to go back for more. And I mean, I had a few tough tournaments the last couple of years, basically because it's been pretty much no pre-fishing. I mean, to be honest with you, just going out there and just see what can happen. and sometimes it works out, and a lot of times it doesn't because you're not really prepared. But for me, in the last few years, having my sons involved kind of brings a whole nother level to it as well. Because they're 4 and 7 now, and they love going out. They don't love fishing necessarily. Charlie, my younger one, loves fishing a little more, but like Carson, my 7-year-old, he just loves being out there, playing with the frogs, playing with the minnows. Like, just, I don't know. It's just, there's always something else that I can get into, like just going to the river for fun, fishing tournaments, filming with my brother-in-law, filming with whoever. I mean, I don't know. I've never had the feeling of being burnt out. Maybe because I'm not constantly fishing tournaments over and over and over and over and over, maybe that's what it is, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to answer your question, to be honest with you. I just love it. I love it, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people have, they come to this sport for different reasons. Some of them I've had on my podcast, guys like Frank Reed, which was, I think it was 3 episodes ago, gentlemen that used to jump out of a plane in the middle of a war zone to, execute. When he goes back to a life of reality, then adjusting is kayak fishing was one of those things that kind of like helped him get back to the life of a civilian. I've had other guests like Susie Roloff, who had points in her life she suffered from depression, and kayak fishing kind of helped her through it. Same thing with Rebecca Lenz from Lady Angela Lenz. So everybody's different, obviously, when it comes to it. Like a lot of people, it's just a hobby. A lot of people, it's a way to help them cope with kayak, with life in general. For you, what is it about kayak fishing that draw you to it?
I think it's when people talk about maybe comparing like fishing out of a boat compared to fishing out of a kayak, like when a boat, I feel like you're kind of visiting the wild in a sense. You're kind of visiting the water, like in the lake. When a kayak, I feel like you're more part of it. I feel like you're like there.
That's very good.
Because you're real close to the water. You can hear everything. Nothing really gets spooked by. You can go right up to deer. They're just kind of looking at you funny and they might run off. But I mean, it's just, there's something about just being there. Like when I bring my sons out on the river, like my older son, he loves like Minecraft and video games, stuff like that now. But when we go out there, he doesn't talk about that stuff, man. We're just there. Like
in the moment.
Like, there's no distractions. We just love it. Even with my 4-year-old. I mean, it's just, I don't know. We just connect better out there. There's no distractions. You're just in it, man. And for me, it's I try to get out once a week. Everybody kind of has the things they do, to relieve stress. If I get out once a week or twice a week, I'm good, man. Just work has been super stressful, and with all the COVID stuff going on, and quarantines and this and that, and my wife's a teacher. And she recently had quarantine, so we had to deal with that, and we all had to work from home, and it's tough, man. So, to get out for 4 hours, on the river or on the lake, I mean, it really helps. I think it's a good like reset for the week. And when my job is crazy, come home, the house is crazy. Those few hours in the water, it helps, man. It kind of helps you just kind of get through.
Yeah, we hit that reset button kind of thing.
Big time.
What do you do for a living, Craig?
I've been in the steel industry for 14 years now. I'm in the actually steel pipe industry. The company that I work for, we sell large steel pipe, and we ship all over the Southeast and actually to the Northeast as well. We fabricate large pipe. If you ever seen a lot of the billboards on the side of the road, those big steel poles that those billboards are on, we fabricate that from steel plate. And that's just part of, we do piling, like for bridges. A lot of the bridges you go under, they have the big steel pipe. We fabricate that and ship it all over. We're actually doing some big projects on Lake Lanier and Lake Allatoona right here in Georgia, right here close to the house. So I've been in it forever, man. My stepdad had a steel company when I was in college. I went to LSU, and I worked there, and I worked at a pizza place at the same time. So I've always been busy, but I've always been in the steel industry since 10th grade. Like just working there in the summer and through college, and I can't get away from it, man. It'd be nice to fish for a living, but hey, here we are. Here we are.
It's definitely nice. It's not all that it cracks up to be when you look at it and you think about it. It's like there's one thing to do something for fun, and then there's another thing to do it for a living. And people say if you do what you love for a living, then you haven't worked a day in your life, and that's true. But at the same time, if you do fish for fun, and now it has to be your source of income. It adds that pressure where it's like, maybe it's not going to be as fun as you think it's going to be. Who knows? I mean, it all depends on on the level of success that each person has and what the expectations are. Somebody like yourself, you said you have 2 kids and a family, then obviously that fishing project, if you're going to make a living out of it, it's going to be a lot more, or needs to have a bigger income than some young dude or young gal that's single, and don't
absolutely.
have to worry about kids.
Yeah, I mean, we have a kid, our youngest is in daycare, and I mean, it's, almost as much as our mortgage to pay for that, So, I mean, to be able to make a living fishing, I think if you had, 4 or 5 sponsors that really support you and you do a lot for them and do it right, that's probably the way to go. I mean, Gene Jensen, a lot of these guys, I know they probably make a lot of money off YouTube and stuff like that. And those guys do it, man. I mean, it's really cool. And they have families and they figure it out, Chad Hoover, all these guys. I mean, and if you hang around any of these guys, and I've been around Chad a lot because I was with him when he was in Tennessee and started all the KBF trails and all that stuff. I was there right when he started it all. And he was the busiest person I ever met, And I don't think he was, making a whole lot of money then, but he was working way more than I was, It's tough, man. You got to love it. You got to love it a lot,
Definitely. And patience to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're running tournaments, how tournaments are. I mean, you can't make everybody happy. There's always somebody not happy about this or that rule or this payout, or it's nonstop with that stuff, man. It's tough. So.
Especially when you look at, for example, in the big glitter boat world, things. I mean, that's going on for what, 4 or 5 decades now. So things have gotten figured out to a point where there's not need to reinvent the wheel, But when it comes to kayak fishing, even though it's similar, there's a lot of different things. There's catch, photo release. There's not a weigh-in per se. So we're still in infancy. So it's gonna take a while before we kind of figure it out. What's the best general basics, the foundation of what's the best way to go about it, before we really kind of set a set foundation both in the tournament and the community. And everybody has different ideas. It's great that people exchange their ideas, their opinions. Obviously, you like to see in a very respectful manner. That's not always the case, but I mean,
no, it's not.
Yeah.
No.
But I mean, it's growing, and it'll get there. It'll get there when it needs to get there. We just have to be patient. Everybody kind of pull their own weight and have a healthy environment to exchange ideas.
This is something I wanted to. You're kind of hitting something there for me. Something that I felt because I've seen KBF grow from the beginning. Like I said, I lived when Chad started Hook One Outfitters.
Yeah.
In Nashville. That's right when I moved there. So I met Chad right when he opened Hook One there in Nashville and saw it, grow into what it did. And so I've seen it over the years. I don't know. That was what 7-8 years ago or something like that. I don't know what it is now. It's a long time. But the one thing I think we're missing, and I don't think the problem is I don't have the answer. So I don't like to go out and say, God, I wish we would do this because I don't have the answer exactly how to do it. Is that we're missing the moments on the water where somebody wins a tournament or loses a tournament. Like we have GoPros and we have some camera guys. We might have one camera guy for a 300-person tournament, and I just wish we could capture those moments more because, you go out there, you catch a fish, you go to the weigh-in. Yeah, it's exciting. Okay, like the national championship, very exciting when they announce the winner, and you're like, okay, there's nothing to show, there's no video, there's no. Okay, you won, and then everybody goes home, and it's like it's an awesome tournament. I understand it's kind of the best we can do right now, probably financial reasons, but I wish we could have camera guys on the top 5 guys at these big tournaments, like the Hobie, the TOC, and the national championship, and actually film everything, man, from when they get up in the morning to like getting their kayaks ready, like really build it up to so you really feel like you're there. Because watching the GoPro stuff is cool, if you can get GoPro stuff from the guy who won. But you never really get it, man, because the cameras are usually behind you. But that's just me. That's a personal thing that I wish I had. Does that make sense?
No, I completely agree. And I think talking to a lot of people that are deep into the kayak fishing community, influencers. I think that's the next step in the evolution. I've talked to guys like here in the Paddle and Fin podcast, with Brian Schiller, the founder of Paddle and Fin. We've talked about that. Jimmy Skinner, who covers tournament, Drew Gregory is also on board with us now. Even guys like Ryan Lambert and Jeff Malott for the KBN, I know they kicked the tires and done their homework on what is the cost to run that. And it's a high cost. I mean, that's the biggest hurdle. I think the next tournament that does that breaks that, breaks it through that next level, it's going to be the next big thing, the next step in the tournament kayak fishing. Because that's really what it is, those moments. Over the last decade or so, we've seen how everything has moving towards out of the typical sitcom to the more reality TV show. And honestly, if you look at it, sports is the biggest reality TV there is. People don't see it that way. People see it as sport. Sports is reality TV. Yeah, it's the moment. Before reality TV was reality TV, we had sports. And I think that's the next step in kayak fishing. Once somebody can break through that and televise segments, tournaments, and post it live and post reactions, like you said, moments, I think that's going to be the next step. Because each angler can do its own thing with this, like you're doing with the social media and the tournament recap and all that. But it's like that live moment that's going to take the next step, I think, and bring it more into mainstream. And from there, God knows how big it can be. People may say, it'll never be as big as bass boat. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it can, maybe it won't. The most exciting thing about it is being on the water.
Yeah. I think, not even necessarily live. Like, there's even, live, that's a whole nother level. But even just to have camera guys there and film it and, put some stuff together later, that's good. And Chad's done a good job, and I've seen a lot of good footage, but you don't have could you think of a moment of the national championship where the camera guy was on him and you watched him catch the winning fish? Like, I can't. There might be, it might be out there, but I can't remember that moment. Like, I just can't. Man, that was so awesome when Russ Snyder's caught that 5-pounder on a frog to win the national championship, because you just don't see it. So it's hard, man. It's hard. I've talked to Chad about it. I've talked to Scott Buescher about it, and it's tough. But it's hard.
Scott Buescher, I think, came the closest one to it with the 5 Live. And you were part of the 5 Live, right? I
was. Yeah, it was awesome. And
I know.
I was hoping he was going to do it again this year. He was trying to. I don't know if y'all talking about, but he was trying to upgrade the equipment so we're not having to use the phones and kind of do a way better version of what he did. And I'm not sure what the status is. I think he's still working on it. But to be part of that, a lot of people watched that. A lot of people.
Yes.
The viewers I was surprised, but there were 200, 300, 400 people watching these things, watching guys fishing a kayak using their phone I'm like, imagine if you stepped it up and had it where it's clear surface the whole time. Because we had issues. Like, I had an issue with my phone overheating, and then if it rained, there were a lot of things that could go wrong there. But he killed it. I thought it was a very successful show he had.
I really thought we were on when that happened and KBBT had coming out, and credit to Greg Nosar, he's trying to do the same thing with KBBT. That's a little different concept. And KFL, which I think is a good idea. I heard more of the big names are signing up to the KFL next season, so we'll see where it goes with that. And I know he's kind of doing, Greg Nosar is kind of doing his homework on trying to bring it live as well, kicking the tires on it and, putting money where his mouth is, which I think, I'm not exactly sure how KFL works. I'm not completely sold on the idea, but man, if we can support him and if he can bring something new to the table that's maybe going to expand the sport, I'm all for it, And we'll see what happens next season. But going back to what you said, 5 Live, and I'll give you and this is a small sample, and I'm not trying to um, toot my own horn here, but I'll say this: I learned who the crack die and die fishing is because of Five Live. Because of that, you got a
Really?
subscriber in me now, and because of that, we got you on the Paddle and Fun podcast, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, at least podcast platforms out there as far as kayak fishing does. So you see what effect the Five Live has, where it's giving you
Yeah.
more exposure. And again, I'm not saying because you're on my podcast, because you're putting the much in the Paddle and Fin network, which does have a broader audience. It's even on Waypoint TV, and I'm sure there's gonna be who knows, maybe a few hundred listeners that listen to this podcast has never heard of Craig die fishing before, and
Right.
now are maybe gonna be tuning in to what's next. So I think Scott Butcher caught lightning in the bottle because he brought something different at exactly the point where it was gonna work. Hobie BOS was suffering with the pandemic. KBF as well. Bassmasters hadn't started kicking the tires yet on kayak fishing, at least not really seriously. And then Scott Butcher comes out, and it allows that social distancing, which was kind of required at that point, and brings it live. And there was a lot of moments out there. I remember one of them was Jackson Orr, like, I don't know, it had like 2 hours to go, loaded up, switched to a
Yeah.
lake,
See,
and won the
see,
tournament.
That's the moment.
That was awesome.
That's what I'm talking about. You remember that? You see,
I do.
And that
And
was
still
four
one of the
guys-
best moments. Yeah.
That was four guys fishing with their phones. I said that's the moment I'm talking about. That if we can wrap that, get more of that, that's what we need, man. That's exactly
Yeah.
you hit it. I mean, that's exactly what I was talking about. Like that's it. And yeah, I know that moment because he didn't have a lot of time. He packed up
Yeah.
a Kobe, went to another pond, and won the dang thing. It was awesome.
Yeah.
man. It was awesome.
And then he was on the final tournament. He was sitting, I think, 3 or 4th. He was hitting a few spaces back, and Cody Milton
Yeah.
was killing it. And all of a sudden, Jackson Orr switched to a floater spoon. And I remember Scott's Butcher reaction when Jackson says, "I'm switching to a floater spoon." And Scott Butcher was like, "Really?" And I actually had to leave because I needed to get something done. But I was thinking in my mind, I wonder how it happened. And when I go back, Jackson Orr finished second to Cody Milton.
yeah.
So it was, he did a great comeback. I mean, Cody Milton was dominating. All of a sudden, Jackson Orr kind of like jumped a few spots and almost got to a point where beating him, throwing a flutter spoon. And I think that was I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been on Summer. So it was
Yeah.
it was an awesome moment, man. I wish I haven't talked to Scott Butcher since. I know he's been kind of sitting low, and I'm hoping that he comes back. When I had him on my podcast, he mentioned, that, spoilers alerts were coming, stage 2 and stage 3 of the Five Live was coming, but we'll see what happens, man. I really hope it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, when February, March came around, I started texting. I was like, "Hey, man, what are we doing? What are we doing?" Because I want to be part of it. I mean, I to fish that. You think it's fun watching it? Try fishing it, man. Like my first round, I did. I only caught 4 fish, and if I would have caught that 5th fish, I easily would have won because I was catching I was on Gunnersville catching quality, but I couldn't even get a 5th fish, man. Because what was it? 2 hours? Was it 2 or 4? I don't know. 3 hours. I don't even remember what it was. 2 or 3 hours.
2 hours, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no time. I mean, it's no. You got to be, whatever you found, they got to be biting. You got to hit that that perfect little window. And I want another chance because I want another chance. I want to go back. So I've been hitting up Scott to let's get it going, man. Come on, get me on the list. Whatever I got to do.
Yeah, even if we just have to stick to phones again, I still think it's worth it.
I agree. I was like, man, let's just do it, man. People liked it. Bring in some new people. I mean, I don't have to do it. I'll wait a year. Just bring in some new guys that people want to see, and I think it'd be cool to see Christine on there.
Yes,
because she would catch them, and I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. I might text him tomorrow and say, hey, man, what's the deal? Let's go.
Tell him we're talking about this in the podcast. Give it a
I
listen,
will.
Scott. If you're listening, Scott, bring it back, man. Bring it back.
I'm telling
Even
you.
if it's the same format, until we figure it out how to make it better, bring it back.
I'll
I thought it was
start
awesome.
I'll start an online petition. Okay, that's what I'll do.
And the way things are going with the pandemic, we might have no choice but to do 5
You're
live.
right. You never know, man. We might be fishing with our phone in front of our face for the next 3 years. I hope not. But
I hope not, man. But it's crazy, man. It's right now here in Texas. We're getting hit hard with that variant or whatever it is. It's sad. But anyways, talking about happier thoughts here. What got you into filming? So you got into kayak fishing. You started fishing. You loved it. What actually got you into saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna complicate it even more, and I'm gonna film, edit, and post it." What was the motivation factor behind it?
Behind filming, man, let's see. So you're gonna crack up. So you've heard of disc golf before, like frisbee golf? You've heard of that sport before?
It's exploding here in Texas too.
Yeah. Well, I started playing in college, and I loved it, man. And I was freaking good at it. I was good at it. So I was like, man, I love this sport. I just really enjoyed it. And I started traveling around the Southeast, and I was an amateur. Moved up. I actually, not really like a pro, but I made some money doing it, and I really loved it. And I started filming that a little bit. And people started watching. If you actually go and search my name on YouTube, like disc golf, you'll see like old stuff, man, from 10 years ago. Back, people weren't really on YouTube. It was like way back. And some of those videos just have a lot of views. That's like my old, like a total different account than my one now. And then I love the filming. I love the editing. And then, the kayak fishing thing started. I started with my wife and I. We were just dating, and we just wanted something to do. And we were here in Atlanta at the time. And I loved to fish and be on the water. And we had the Chattahoochee right down the street because we lived close kind of downtown. So we got a tandem kayak. We started doing that. They called that the divorce kayak, so that didn't last too long, right? So we got our own kayaks, and then I started bringing the filming into that. And I filmed like a video. There's this private pond in downtown Atlanta. It was my first ever kayak fishing video, and I put it on YouTube, catching I was throwing a little rapala, little shad rap, catching little small bass, but it was fun making it. A lot of people watched, a lot of people liked it and commented on it, and really it's kind of grown from there. And then when I got to Nashville, I was doing more tournaments, fishing more. That's where I met Chad, and he let me come on his show, which was awesome. And then I met Mike Ernst. He's an incredible photographer, good buddy of mine in Nashville, and he is really good with a camera. And I was okay, I just had like a GoPro and stuff. I didn't have like any good equipment. But when I met him, he had good cameras. And we started filming some topwater stuff and just started really getting into it. And that's when it kind of took off, man. And, Last Cast Productions is what we started, him and I together. And we did a few films together. We did the Mike Schmitz film, Freedom. I don't know if you've seen that one. I can send you that one. But Mike's paralyzed, and we basically showed how he fishes out of it, how he enters the water, and how, you got to watch that video. It's called Freedom. Yeah. Go look it up. It's on YouTube. It's under Last Cast Productions. It's the best video I've ever made. I mean, it's not like the best camera angles and the best editing, but the story is what made that one. And really, it just kind of grew from there, man. And then I moved back to Atlanta. Mike is still in Nashville, so we're not really shooting together. But, I'm getting together with my brother-in-law this weekend. It just keeps rolling. Like, we just get different ideas. And, I've started the YouTube channel last year, and I just want to kind of keep good content flowing and just kind of keep it going, like some stuff for technique stuff with my kids, a little bit of everything. I want to have tournament footage, the co-angling stuff, everything. And I really enjoy the editing process, and I mean, it just kind of has built, and I don't know, you like when we talked about earlier, it doesn't get old. You get out there, you never know what you're gonna get on film. You come home and edit it, and you're like, man, that's pretty cool. So that's about it, man.
That's awesome. And I would love to see that video. When you mentioned Freedom, I think it's one of the things that I enjoy most about doing the podcast is talking to people and about life, not just kayak fishing, but life and what got into kayak fishing. We were talking about before the pre-recording the different reasons people get into kayak fishing, and a lot of it is just kind of deal with life and what you lived through or what you lived before you got into kayak fishing, and kind of how to manage it. And it's a great sport. It's very calming. Touching back on something that you said, nothing against bass boats. I fish out of bass boat. I think it's great. When you're in an open lake, I love bass boats. But for fishing, when there's something about going deep into creeks and rivers, that is just magical. And like you said, you don't feel like you're a visitor. Like when you're in a bass boat, I feel sometimes it's like you got that element of a power boat and you're zipping through it and boom and going through wakes and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. You feel like a guy, right? But when you're in kayak fishing, it's not about testosterone fuel, or it's just about you being in the water, and you really feel like you're part of nature. Now, granted, sometimes you go get, you see a big Texas gator, and then you feel like, yeah, this is way too much like being part of it. This is a little bit more than I wanted to feel like I'm part of it.
It's a good life choice.
Yeah, I want to feel like part of it, but I don't want to feel like I'm lunch for somebody that's, so granted. But at the same time, it's going back to what you said, all jokes aside, you see an eagle flying by and catching fish. You see deer, wild hogs. It's awesome, man. It's just very calming, very great way to kind of unwind, man, and to see that reset button and kind of like, even if you're not catching fish, it's, to me, I clear my head so much. It's crazy how I can be 8 hours on a cubicle, an hour into it, I'm like, good Lord, I still have 7 hours of this. How I'm ever going to survive? Yeah. And now and if I'm on a kayak, I'll be like, crap, I've been here 7 hours. I only have 1 hour left. Yeah. It's like, where did the time go? Where did the time go? How fast is it already 2:00? It's crazy, man. Yeah, it's just life zips by you so fast when you're having fun, even if you're not catching anything.
Yeah, and I suggest everyone, a lot of the kayaks now are real big, real wide. They're not really built for paddling. And I started out back, with like a Tarpon 120, the Ride 115, but I had a Tarpon 160, Wilderness Systems Tarpon 160, and it's super long, narrow kayak. It's only 28 inches wide. And those kayaks are built for paddling. And for all the guys getting into kayak fishing, I mean, Hobie's a great kayak, New Canoe's a great kayak, and there's so many good kayaks. But if you can get in a kayak that's built for paddling and get on the water like real early in the morning in a river or lake or whatever, I mean, just paddling when it's just that, that like perfect time of day, it's hard to beat that. I mean, it's great fishing and it's great catching fish, but there's more to it as well. I mean, I got a motor on my New Canoe, so I'm motoring around now, these days. But if you haven't done it, go find a good paddling kayak that's built to kayak and it sits a little bit lower, kind of narrow, and just go paddle and really enjoy just that part of it too. I mean, because that's a whole different. I mean, some people in North Georgia and Tennessee, they have groups that all they do is paddle. Not even whitewater. They just go paddle.
Oh yeah, we have some groups like that.
I mean, they just and I'm like, I don't quite always get it, like for all day, because I want to go fish, but I do get it, for those few moments in the morning or late in the afternoon when the sun's dropping. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's something it doesn't get old, and and I'm lucky now. I get to share with my sons, and I mean, it's just I'm still hooked on it. I mean, you think I get sick of it, but I don't. I really don't.
I don't see any way that I would get sick of it, honestly. I wouldn't trade a kayak for a bass boat. Again, nothing against bass boat. It's awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
It's great fun. And if I had a family with kids and everything, I would totally get a bass boat because, it's easier to take the family, especially when they're young. But I wouldn't trade them, man. Just the fact that I can get on spots or nobody else can get, and see things that otherwise would be intimidated and scared and either run off or fly off or swim off before you even get to see them. That's pretty awesome.
It is.
So I don't. You can't explain it, but I mean you can. But for those out there that are thinking into getting kayaking or kayak fishing in general, You got to give it a try. It's funny because I was fishing the other day, and I'm up in the reeds, flipping on reeds, and I see this kayak coming, pedaling from a long ways away. And I'm thinking he was like beelining right at me, right to me. I'm like, why is this guy beelining it right at me? Like, can't he see I'm pre-fishing for a tournament? But I was like, you know what? It's kayak fishing community. Let's be welcoming. So the guy comes up. He just wanted to see my kayak. I have a Hobie 360, and he started asking me questions. Now he was in, I think it was one of those Kmart Dolphins. I think it's the name of that, or the Ozarks. One of those, where it's not even a seat. It's just a padding in the hull. Yeah. But props to him, man. You know, an older gentleman too. I mean, he had to be up there in the late 60s with one rod, and he's like, and he started asking me questions about the kayak and you know how much it costs and what can you do with it, what's the advantages of it. He goes off and he runs to everybody, and I can hear him. He doesn't think I can hear him, but he was like talking to the other buddy. Man, that guy over there has this kayak, and he's talking to, you know, it's that exchange of ideas and information and choices that it's what it is. You don't have to be on a very expensive $5,000, $10,000 kayak. Well, I mean, if you rig it out, you can get that expensive, I guess.
Yeah.
You can just be on a. It doesn't matter. Like, you can be in a stand-up paddle and go fish and have fun and enjoy it.
Absolutely, and you know I get that all the time. I get it all the time, man. Like, I fish Lake Lanier, and Lake Lanier, I believe, is one of the most popular lakes in the country. Just being close to Atlanta, the fishing's incredible. The recreational traffic is just insane there. So when I launch my kayak and I have the Motor Guide XI3, you know, and I push it off, and my kayak goes out on its own, and I hit the motor from my remote. You know, everybody, you know, you got $80,000 bass boats and ski boats over here, but everybody's coming to talk to me about my kayak, and I got $3,000 in the whole thing, and it's just people are intrigued, man. They really are. You know, they're like, I didn't know they could do that. You know, then you stand up in it, and then they freak out. They're like, you can stand in that thing, you know. But for the guys, you know, starting out, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Just get out there. Just get out there and go fish. I mean, I was in I think it was a Pelican. I don't remember. We got it from Dick's Sporting Goods. My first kayak. You know, it was like $400. You know, and we caught a lot of fish out of it. And then we upgraded, you know, to our own. But you know, just get out there. That's all I can say. It doesn't matter. Just get out there and go.
It is. It's fun. Go try it out, people. If you like it, enjoy it. If you haven't done it before, I'm assuming if you're listening to the podcast, you will. Otherwise, why are you here listening? But so a lot of your social media and YouTube is entertainment, and a lot of it is educational. So I kind of wanted to pick your brains on some of the rods and reel setups that you do, and kind of see what you recommend. And I kind of want to compare it to what I do, not on air, but just kind of like see if we're thinking along the same line. So let me start with the crankbait. What's your favorite? Just keep it simple. Not lines. We're not gonna go into lines, but like rod and reel crankbaits for crankbait fishing.
I don't know if you watch my videos. I love throwing crankbaits. I love. Hold on a second. Knock my earphone out. If I could catch a fish on a crankbait, I'm throwing it. I mean, if it doesn't matter if it's a river, if it's around edges of grass, that's just something I've just grown to love to do. And I probably do it a little bit too much sometimes. I get stuck on trying to find that bite. Sometimes it works, you know, sometimes it doesn't. But it's something I absolutely love to do. I do it a lot. I like throwing. I like the St. Croix Legend glass rods. They just have a nice soft tip to them, and it's kind of, they're not super sensitive rods, you know, so it kind of creates a delay in when you set the hook. Does that make sense? So, you know, using a regular graphite rod, especially if you're using like fluorocarbon, like 12 or 14 pound fluorocarbon, you're going to feel that bite. I mean, I've had times where you can feel the crankbait wobbling, and then the fish will come up behind it, and then the wobble changes on the crankbait. I don't know if you ever experienced that, but you know there's a fish following that bait. And with those graphite rods, you feel everything. And those glass, you know, on a graphite rod, those glass rods, they're just not as sensitive, but they have an awesome bend to them. So I use a 6 foot for like throwing square bills. So, 1 foot to probably 6 foot of water. I like a 6'10". It's a medium power, and I like the just like a medium action. So it's like a medium, medium moderate, moderate action. So because you want that nice soft tip to let that crankbait bounce off the rocks, bounce off the wood, and also it'll help you keep a fish pinned. When they come up and hit it right by the kayak or come jump, having that nice soft tip on that rod, you'll catch a lot more fish. That's the number one thing to do for crankbait fishing is, a medium power, like medium action, moderate power, so you have a nice soft tip. That's the number one thing you can do for catching more fish with a crankbait. So for my reel, I like a 6/8 to 1. I don't like a super slow or a super fast reel. That 6/8 to 1 is that perfect happy medium for me, especially in a kayak. A lot of times, you're moving toward that fish. So if you have a slower reel, I know they have more power and more torque, those 5 1-to-1s, but having that medium, like 6/8 to 1, you can still reel it at a good speed and the fish can't get ahead of you and you lose them. Even when your kayak is floating to them, you can always catch up with them. Every now and then you're going to lose one. That's just fishing, but that's what I like. And when I go to like 6 to like 8 foot and deeper, I usually bump up to like a 7.2 or even a 7.6 length rod, and it's the same medium, moderate. I like that soft tip is the main thing, because that bait can get down, and when it digs, having that soft tip will let that bait, that big bill, when it comes over wood or rock, it'll really help it deflect off. And also that's when you get your bites. With crankbaits, it's that reaction bite. That crankbait's bouncing all over the place, and that's how you get them. So that's pretty much my setup. And I actually use monofilament. A lot of guys use fluorocarbon. Probably most people use fluorocarbon, but I like mono. One, it's cheap. It's cheap, and you can find it anywhere. It's real cheap, and I go through a lot of it. Like I change that line a lot, and I use like 10 or 12 pound, just good old string mono, and I might jump up to 14 if I'm fishing a square bill, like around, a bunch of big trees and logs, and there's a lot of big fish. I might go up to 14 or even 17 pound if it's, if you're really catching big ones out there. So but that's it, man. That's pretty much it. I have an addiction to crankbait fishing. I love it. And if there's a
I noticed on your videos,
yeah, if there's a crankbait bite, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it some way. I just really enjoy it. I don't know what it is. Something about getting that bait down, bouncing it off something, and feeling that fish just load up on it. It's addicting, man. I'll tell you, it is.
I think it is. I kind of like went away from it when I started learning, because I would get hung up on it so much that I was like, it was frustrating. But that's one of the things now that with more experience, you kind of like learn when and when not to throw it and how to avoid getting a hang up. But that's interesting what you're mentioning about the length, because that was the first thing I was going to ask you, is like, why such a short rod? But now I got the explanation of what the deeper you go, probably the longer the rod is. And the reason why I say that, for those that are there listening, is I've always learned the longest your casting distance is your best friend especially when we're talking about deep cranking crankbaits.
Absolutely.
Because you want it to be on the sweet spot. So the longer distance you put between you with yourself and the bait, the more time and trajectory it's going to spend at its intended depth. So that's a good point. I totally understand why you do it now for square bill, which is obviously 1 or 2 feet deep, versus something like a deep diving crankbait, which you obviously get a bigger rod for that to cast more distance. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and then having a shorter rod, you can be more accurate. So if you're throwing a square bill, you're probably fishing targets that you can see a lot of the time, and that helps a lot. You can be way more accurate. And also, like I mentioned, talking about using the mono, is also like the stretch of mono. There's a lot of stretch of monofilament line. A lot of guys don't like it, but let me tell you, you will lose a lot less fish fishing mono on the crankbaits. A lot.
Then fluoro?
Yes.
I agree. One of the things
that's how I feel about it. Have so much.
No, and you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. I lose so many fish on fluoro, on crankbaits. that I started switching to the braid, just because you can cast further with braid than you can do with mono. So I started using that, and then maybe like a 5-6 foot long leader for fluoro. And my hookup ratio went from like, I would miss like, I would lose a fish, I don't know, 3 out of 5 times from fluoro, to like maybe I'll lose one every 10 that I hook up into now with the braid and the fluoro leader. And I got into fluoro because I watched guys talk about fluoro because they either fish from the bank or the boat, which is completely different. That's one thing. If for people that are getting into kayak fishing, you have to understand, a 5-pounder bass will tow you around, and it has a lot of give. Chad Hoover mentioned it a couple of years ago on one of his podcasts. Gene Jensen too, not podcast, YouTube channel. The rod has give. The fluoro has give. Now you have a kayak that has give as well. So what's gonna happen? It's you're really giving that fighting chance to that bass to come up loose. When you do like a braid or mono, which has a lot less stretchiness to it, if that's a word, than fluoro, it really increases your hookup ratio. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I like it, and it's you can cast mono really far, which I like.
Yes.
You don't it doesn't have a lot of memory. I mean,
And it's a lot cheaper too.
It's a lot cheaper now, and I buy the big spools of it, 1,000-yard spools of it that I keep. That every tournament I'll switch out all. My braid obviously just stays as is, but that mono I run through it, man. I like it. There's nothing better than a fresh reel with mono on there. It casts so good. It's perfect, man. It's perfect. Yeah,
that's very true. Craig, I've had you over for almost an hour, so and I know you're a family man. You have your wife, you have your kids, so I don't want to keep you too long. So I want to thank you again for coming to the podcast, telling us a little bit about you. Taking us through your, how you got into fishing and filming, talking about your YouTube channel, your social media, and giving us some tips on crankbaits, which I know, like I've seen in your channels, it's something you love doing and you have a great knowledge. And I like the fact that you kind of think outside the box and bring a different element to it that I don't think gives people a chance to listen to other ideas about how to fish with crankbaits. And I think that's important because it's not always cookie cutter, and every scenario is different. So I appreciate you taking the time. Having said that, I want to give you a few minutes for you to, thank sponsors, tell us a little bit of what to expect next with dive fishing, and thank anybody you want to thank, and shout out any companies, anybody you want to do a plug.
Yeah, well, we talked about the YouTube channel a lot. That's something that I'm working pretty hard on. I mean, look, let's just be honest. I'm not here trying to be Gene Jensen and have 1 million followers, but I want to keep it rolling and I want to keep it consistent. That's the main thing. Just trying to stay consistent, with good stuff. So I'm going to mix in tournament footage, techniques, new lures coming out. Not even lures that, just random, just kind of new stuff, like maybe from iCast that just came out. I got a new topwater video I'm about to put out. And I just, if you guys can check it out, come subscribe. It's just search Dye Fishing. That's DYE Fishing. You'll see it on there. You can see me fishing with my sons. You can see, fishing from a bass boat, the BFL as a co-angler. And those videos are really cool because you get in the boat with these guys that you never met before. You're there for 8 hours, and you got to figure it out, man. And what you learn about those videos is that fishing the back of a boat in a BFL tournament it's kind of like kayak fishing, because you're there. Like kayak fishing, you can't just run 10 miles down the lake. Like you're there in that spot at that moment. You got to figure it out where you're at right now. Like you can't just run to your spots. You're in somebody else's boat. You got to fish the back of the boat, so you got to be versatile, and you'll kind of see how I kind of do that. I'm actually doing quite well. I think I'm 6th in the Bulldog division in Georgia for the co-angler in the BFL division. So I'm trying to make the regional, and then I'm trying to make the All-American next year. That's the goal. Ultimate goal is to make the All-American. So anyway, you can kind of see that journey, and then man. I guess I want to thank New Canoe. I've been loving the Pursuit and the Unlimited. There's plenty. I did some videos on that too. Awesome kayaks. Westbrook Supply. They have all the new canoes there. Bending Branches paddles, Ray Marine. I love my Ray Marine Element. That thing is really cool. St. Croix rods. Everybody knows St. Croix rods. I don't need to say anything about them. And then Dakota Lithium Batteries keeps me going. Thank you, Craig Stormy. I don't know if you know him, but he supports the kayak community like nobody else. Very cool dude. Let's see what else. Rogue Fishing. They make the cool the drag straps, and for your tethers for your phone. Very clever, very needed item that everybody go check out roguefishing.com. Believe me, it'll be worth your $20, $30, $40. It'll save you a lot of money in the future.
Yeah.
So I think I covered everybody, but I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime you want me back on, man, I would love to come talk.
Nah, definitely, man.
Yeah.
Love to have you on again. I'm a big fan of what you're doing, so it's an honor to have you on the show, man, and look forward to having you come up soon, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
If not in this, on Paddle and Fin, I'll talk to Sean Lavery. I know he would love to come up to talk about crankbait fishing. I know that's right in your wheelhouse, so I'm sure it'll be a very informative episode that a lot of our listeners would love to hear from you.
Yeah,
So.
I'm in, man. Just let me know.
Appreciate it. For those out there, listeners, thank you again for coming up. This has been the Bass Kayak and Beers with your host Armando. Once again, go check out my sponsor, Douglas Rod. Go to douglasoutdoors.com to check out the full lineup of LRS, X-Matrix, and award-winning fly fishing rods. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're going to be out there on the water, wear your PFDs. Stay safe. Till next time.